Okay, what's up, y'all? What's up? Welcome to another episode of AMA with LCJ. I am your host LaToya Collins-Jones. As you can see, got a new little setup. I shifted my desk, um, and I really like it. I hope you like it too. I had to kill that countdown. It just was not letting me be great today. It's funny. I was like, there's a reason why I don't use that countdown. I've been using another one, but nonetheless, so give me a moment here. I'm pulling up my world of LinkedIn so I can make sure that I'm connecting with everybody there as well. Um, because it's a little bit different. So I just want to make sure that we are all set and ready to go. Okay, y'all. Happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. I hope you all have been enjoying it. What's up, Jana? Welcome, welcome, welcome. We have an exciting topic today. Now, here's the deal. I don't know how some of my leaders, how you all are going to feel about today's conversation. Today's conversation, we are going to be talking about the art of delegation. Are you driving success? Are you leading to doom? And the reason why I love this particular topic is because we've talked about it quite a bit on the show in previous episodes, but we're dedicating an entire episode to just talking about delegation. And I'm excited to talk about it because what I find is this: typically leaders who excelled in their individual contributor roles sometimes struggle with delegation once they become leaders, right? And in order to have a high performing, high functioning, successful team as leaders, right, you've got to be able to delegate. And so, as a result of that, spending an entire episode talking solely about delegation, I think it's going to just be really, really key. So before we get started, just really quickly, also, if this is your first time watching, thank you so much. Hold on, y'all. I gotta okay, there we go. I just needed to make sure I could hear myself. I felt like I was talking loud. Um, so if this is your first time watching, thank you so much for joining. Super excited for you to hop in and have conversation with me. I do have a request. If you have questions, engage. I have this neat little tool, and I want to make sure that I'm engaging. I just saw that heart emoji, so I appreciate that on LinkedIn. Whoever gave that, engage because I can see it all. Please feel free to make sure that you put information into the chat, all of the things, because that actually encourages me to keep going, making sure I'm on the right track. If you have something to say, drop it in the comments because I can actually see all of the comments in this handy dandy tool that I have right now. Okay, so we're going to talk about the art of delegation. Now, I set up the story about why we talk about it, but really one of the aha moments I had when I was working on the newsletter about talking about delegation, the aha moment that I had where I think most people trip up about delegation. Most people see delegation as giving up, right? So if you're a leader, okay, and you've got to delegate something, your first it feels like you're giving up something, like you're giving it away. And it's not. And I think this slight 10-degree shift in this mindset around delegation is going to really shift. So instead of thinking of it as you giving it up or giving it away, what I want you to think about is that you are empowering, right? You're powering, you're leading up and empowering, right? So those are the key things that I think are really, really important. Oh, I love it. I already got a question. Let's go. All right. Anna Marie says, great question. As an individual contributor, how do you delegate without authority? It's hard to get buy-in without accountability. As an individual contributor, how do you delegate without authority? it's hard to get buy-in without accountability. This is a great question. So when I think about our role, when you're in an individual contributor role, it is a lot of leading without it's leading with influence, not by title. And so when you think about delegating, I think one of the things that I've I've gotten better. I had to get really good at this, right? Anna Marie, which was like social contracts, right? Because it is hard to get buy-in without accountability. But I've learned that when I'm going in and I'm approaching a project, I think there's almost like a charter, right? There's usually a charter, whether there's one written or not, there's absolutely a charter that is established when you're working with someone, right? And so it's being able to go in and say, okay, this is the scope of the work, but now we need to establish some level of charter about how we're going to work. What does this look like? I am a huge fan of a RACI model. I believe in a good RACI. For those of you all who don't know what RACI is, it means responsible, accountable, consulting, and informed. And so for me, Anna Marie, a lot of what I found was especially in large companies, lines get blurred really quickly. And trying to get buy-in, especially from a delegations point when you're running point on something or you're trying to figure it out, a RACI allows everybody to clear it up. So it's almost to me, even just doing a basic RACI kind of helps go ahead and say, hey, like I'm actually responsible. So if somebody is responsible or accountable for that, I think there's opportunity to figure out where and how you delegate. Because I've also been in groups where, some people will like to delegate all of the work out and then slap their name on the deck. And I'm just not for that, right? Like, and so it does find a level of balance. And the other piece of the puzzle, when we think about delegating without authority as an individual contributor, the other thing that I think about is I have no problem having really hard conversations. I talk a lot about the book Crucial Conversations, which is leaning into that and saying, hey, like, in order for us to get this done, right? In order for us to get this done, here's what we need to do. Here's how we need to establish things. Now, if we get halfway down the project, you all, it's really hard as an individual contributor. But you get further down the line and somebody's not pulling their weight. That's when you have opportunity to be like, yo, what's up? And if you know me, that's exactly probably how that conversation is going to start. It's there's no code switch. I'm like, yo, look, here's the deal. We got to get this done. What does this look like? What do we need to do? And I think that makes a difference in terms of that. Now here's the other Jedi. I'm gonna give you a Jedi mind trick. I guess it's not Jedi anymore because I'm putting it all over the internet. One of the things that I love to do is it goes back to um I'll come back to that. But it's one of the things I love to do is goes back to empowering, right? So when I'm in an individual contributor role, working in a capacity where I may not necessarily have the control that I want, and I'm having to lead through influence, and I don't have that title, and I'm trying to get that buy-in and accountability and delegating. One of the things that I love to do is go in and say, hey, this is your strength. This isn't my strength. Here's my strength. And so I've also learned to advocate for myself and then also empower those around me to ensure that they're taking up things that actually fall into their lane. And so it's a little bit of a shift, a little bit of a Jedi mind trick, but that's also the way that I can even get buy-in to saying, hey, here's what I'm really good at. Here's what I'm not really good at. Here's what, here's what Bob is good at. This is what Mary's good at. Now let's really think about, as we're delegating out what needs to get done, we should be trying to align the work according to our strengths. And I find that works as well. Hope that helped, Anna Marie. That was a really good question out of the gate. Love it. And side note, I just want to give a shout out really quickly to Anne Marie. I said Anna Marie, my bad, Anne Marie. Anne Marie got a patent. She's like an engineering genius that I had the pleasure of knowing. So I just want to give a shout out. Everybody, if you're watching, make sure you give Anne Marie a shout out because she is doing the thing. All right. Jessica says, haha, I can't say that to my team. Yo, what's up? You probably can't say yo, what's up to your team. I mean, I was talking definitely on a peer standpoint. But I probably would say, "Yo, what's up?" to my team. I'm pretty sure when I had a team, I probably said, "Yo, what's up?" for for sure. It's probably not even a question of if I did it or not. I'm almost certain I have. All right. Once again, make sure you drop your questions in. I want to make sure I get those answered around delegations. If not, of course, I already have questions in the queue ready to go. Um, and so we're gonna actually hop in and we'll get one of these questions. I think I'm gonna start with this one. This is a good question. Um, in your experience, how do you build trust and ensure accountability when delegating tasks? And I thought this was a good question, especially off of Anne Marie's question, because I want to focus on this. I want to focus on trust versus in the accountability piece. So, how do you build trust and ensure accountability when delegating tasks? As leaders, I'm going to start with leaders because that's kind of my main focus initially. When we're looking at building trust and ensuring accountability, one of the hardest pieces of the puzzle for leaders is trust. Now, if you were to ask most leaders, you say, "Hey, do you trust your team? Do you trust?" Of course, I trust my team. I would be hard pressed. Now, get it? There are probably leaders who have, I mean, even as a leader, I've had it as a leader be like, don't know if they have the capabilities, right? But if you were to ask most leaders, say, absolutely, yes, I trust my team. I trust my team wholeheartedly, right? But still struggle with delegation. So I'm going to challenge you. How much do you actually trust your team if you're not delegating enough work? Right. And so you've got to know when and where and how to do that. And so part of it is if you have the trust, right? And it's not just I trust that person. There's another layer to trust when you're trying to move towards delegation more and empowering. Remember, we're not giving up, we're empowering. The trust then becomes, do I trust their capabilities and their skill set? And the question then I would probably have if I were coaching you, right, would be if your team is lacking in skills and capabilities, what are you doing as a leader to ensure that they're skilling up so that you can continue to empower them? As leaders, it becomes so easy to I get it. I know. It'd be like, I just do it myself. For those of you all who have kids, you know exactly I'll just do it myself. You did not sleep right. I'm just gonna do it myself, right? Like that's the default, but that's not that's not sustainable. Especially, I'll tell you why it's not sustainable, especially what we're seeing now. I just had a really great conversation with somebody earlier today, and I was like, you're starting to see this a lot in a lot of organizations, especially tech organizations, where they're increasing spans, which is how many people you manage, and decreasing layers, which means there's less layers in the company but increasing the amount of people that you're responsible for. Now, here's what happens. That work does not go away. That's the funny this it's the funniest thing about all of this stuff. Um, Even in large organizations that say, okay, yes, we're reducing our workforce, we're increasing our spans, reducing our layers because we were too heavy, right? Well, here's the catch. Most of the time that work does not go anywhere. It gets redistributed, and sometimes now what we're even seeing are leaders are acting as individual contributors and managers at the same time, especially in the middle. So you've got to figure out as leaders when and where you delegate. You've got to build skill and capabilities within your team members so that you can delegate, so that you can continue to do what you need to do. And so often what we're finding, what you find is this is where delegation comes from. Tell me if I need to know in the chat if you've experienced this. Like, here's what happens typically. A senior leader asks for something from your leader. Your leader, because they're not as close to the work, they're going to ask you. And then you probably may or may not ask somebody on your team. So it's, the crap rolls downhill kind of thing. That's what you see all the time. right? So you've got to get better because somebody, I guarantee you, if you're doing work, you are doing work that was delegated down the train, like down the train somewhere along the way, right? And so you've got to figure out, okay, does this make sense for me to keep? Or is this something I can actually pass off and go from there? And that becomes the harder thing to decipher over time. But building capabilities is tough. And you've got to get really in tune with your team and know what they're great at and know what they're not. Um, okay, Jessica, you have a question. Let's go. Delegating complex tasks to multiple people that need to come together for one result becomes hard to track. Do you have any thoughts on how to do that without micromanaging? Good question. So I'll repeat that one more time. Delegating complex tasks to multiple people that need to come together for one result becomes hard to track. Do you have any thoughts on how to do that without micromanaging? Yeah. Um so one of the things that um I like this theory as a leader. I'll tell you my at least what I did, Jessica, which is I like to call it the one throat to choke. Even if you're delegating something, and it may be you may be the person who's ultimately responsible, but if you're having to delegate complex tasks across multiple people, you have to have some level of like a shared workspace. You have to have, whether that's a folder, whether that's a chat, um maybe it's both, maybe it's a workspace, because oftentimes what ends up happening is you're trying to manage all of that, and let's just say it's an email, right? Then a lot of what you're trying to do is it's not real time. Email's never real time, right? Which is why a lot of times I prefer, when you're working on something that's complex that requires a lot of people, it should be done in some type of collaborative space. And that's cuz that's going to be more real time than email. Because if you've ever been a part of a project that has lots of moving parts, what ends up happening, you guys know, like you get the email chain, it's like the conversation thread on your Outlook, and you're like, okay, so such and such sent this email, and such a, so then you got to go back up through the threads to figure out where things are and what's actually happening versus working collaboratively out of the gate. So to answer your question, I think to not micromanage, it really is about finding a collaborative space that allows you to be in tune with what's going on. But you still kind of watch, you're still able to kind of hear and see what's happening. So if I have, two or three team members, I had, some type of ask I wanted them to work on, I would just go to Teams, I create a chat with me and those team members, and then we will work real time. And it's actually faster that way, asynchronously versus trying to manage it either via email, or you have that one. And that's the other thing about collaborative documents is because you have one thing, everybody's working out of the same thing, and you're not trying to manage like 5, 6, 7 different versions of stuff. So leverage technology would be my short answer. I gave you the we went the scenic route, but the short route is leverage technology when and where you can, to create some type of collaborative workspace for you all to do that. Hope that helped. Okay. All right, here we go. Oh, sorry to smack y'all. This tea is hot. Okay, here we go. Let's see. Let's see. Just so electronic collaborative workspace. I like that. Awesome. I'm glad that could help. Great question. Um, this one, um, this one is a really good one. Um, can I discuss a time when delegation didn't go as planned and how I handled it? Oh, let me count the ways. There are so many times this has happened. I can't even tell you. Um, th- this is honestly, before I answer this question, I have delegated and it has not gone as planned. And I'll tell you what I've done in those scenarios. But before I answer that question, I want to double down on delegation is not giving up, it's empowering. Most of the time, I've delegated something. I'm not going to say most. I'll say if it's not fully their area of expertise, is what I'll say. If I've delegated something, they may get it 60 to 70% right. 60 to 70%. This is where the empowering part comes up. This is where, as we've talked about week over week over week, y'all, I say the same thing every week. This is where getting really good at giving feedback, communication, and honest feedback back to your teams pays off, right? If you're not strong in tough conversations or coaching and feedback, that is a necessary skill as a leader. So before I answer what I did, I think it's important that I reiterate it is absolutely important. Coaching and feedback skills are necessary in order to be an effective leader. Having good coaching and feedback skills are necessary for you to be able to delegate, right? Now, with that being said, discuss a time when I've had to delegate something and it didn't go as planned. I have so many examples. I don't even know where to begin. Um, let's see. Oh, there's so many. Like I literally am struggling to get in my head. Okay, so actually I'll probably think about there's a couple of examples. I'll give broad examples. I don't want to give like very, very specific things, but there have been times where I've had to delegate something. There's been times where I've had to delegate something. And in the process of having to delegate, um, it could be a deck, it could be the start of a project, or research. Sometimes I can come back if you have somebody early in career, typically I've delegated something that's come back and it is bare bones, right? That thing is on a diet because it is missing all the key components of what I needed, right? I'll kind of break it down. I'll go early career, I'll go kind of mid career, and I'll kind of go how I coach what I consider high potential talent early in career. If I delegate a task to them, typically it's not going to be super crazy, but it's probably going to be something I don't either want to do or have time to do or the capacity to do. And when I get it back, it's typically it needs a little coalescing, if you will. Like we need to put it on the I grew up in Baptist church, like sick and shut in list. If you know what that means, you know what that means. But of essence, it just needs some work and some love. And so when I get it back, I'll say, "Okay, great. That was a really good effort, right? This is how I handle it. Okay, so what I was looking for was this. What did you hear?" And sometimes I'll do this at the beginning. Sometimes I'll push them in the deep end and let them figure it out. Both ways work, right? And I'll say, "Okay, great. Thanks. Um, this was a good effort. Here's what I'm looking for." And we may go and we may take 15, 20 minutes, 30 if needed. And I will say, "Okay, here's where this is. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? It's missing this." To keep in mind, I'm not doing it. I'm coaching them and giving them the feedback. And then I'll go let them try again. And then they'll come back. And this time, it may not be skinny. Is we got a little meat on the bones, but we still got to get them to the other side. We got to get it healthy. And it may take a couple rounds. But I also don't give them work that probably early in career or super new that is going to be detrimental if they fail at it, right? So you also have to delegate to people's skill and capacity level. It may be like, "Hey, this is a really good," sometimes it may be a nice to have. That person has some extra bandwidth. I want them to go work on that, right? If they're mid-career. Now let's go to mid-career. They're established. They've been around the block a couple times. Now I've delegated something to them. Conversation may go a little bit different. I have had instances where somebody early in career may give me something back, and it wasn't up to standard. You know, I talk a lot about excellence and operating with the spirit of excellence, not perfection, but excellence, right? Say, "Okay, hey, great. How do you think this went?" Like, and I'll let them go all the way through. "So, what do you think I'm going to say?" And sometimes They'll answer their own question. There are other times, once again, I'll continue to ask questions. Delegation is about empowering. As I'm going through and I'm asking questions, and series of questions, one of my favorite things was watching people get aha moments. All of a sudden, you can watch it click because I need them to get it. And in order to do that, like as a great leader, you should be duplicating yourself across the board where people have skills and capabilities. If you're the only person who can do everything that you do, that's a problem. Even if it's like, now I get it. For certain, sometimes for like security purposes, there are certain things that only you have to do or can do. That's fine. But I would always be looking at what ways is it I'm working on something. Where's a piece of it? Where who on my team can I bring along with me? And it's not everybody. But that's kind of how you have to figure it out over time. You cannot fear. And here's the other thing. Oh, just got a aha, y'all. Stay with me on this. I just got excited. Okay. Here's the other thing that's powerful and empowering about delegation. The more you delegate, the better your team is in being resilient. If you don't delegate enough, they probably won't fail enough. And then you have a team that's lacking resiliency. What happens is, as I'm delegating things out to them, they're going to come. Sometimes they're just gonna. There are times they're gonna knock it out of the park. There are times they're gonna come up short, and then there are gonna be times, kind of in between. But what happens is, as I'm giving them things and they're trying new things and I'm pushing them outside of their comfort zone, they're not going to be afraid to fail. They're not going to be afraid to try things because I'm constantly pushing them to the edge of what I think is possible for them. I never set my team members up to fail. So I have working knowledge of what they're capable of. I have a- I have a really good I feel like I had a really good knack of understanding where I could push them to, right? And so as a result of that, I may go in and say, "Hey, like there are times I'll hold their hand and we'll walk into the pool together." There are times I'll do that, depending on what it is. Sometimes if I have a high potential talent that's working for me, and I want to hand them off or help them give a piece of a larger project for visibility, I will kindly walk their hand into the pool. However, there are times where I'll take my team member, I will push them into the deep end, and they will flap and flail. I will never let them drown. And then all of a sudden, you watch them go from flapping and flailing to figuring out that they're actually safe and they can tread water and catch their breath to becoming really great swimmers. That's what delegation does. It builds their confidence and it builds your confidence in them too. Right? Hope that makes sense. Hope that makes sense. Let me know if you all have any more questions. I've been experimenting, so I'm on I'm live on Twitter, if you will. Um or Twitter X, formerly known as Twitter is how they say it. I always forget that. X. Which is hilarious, by the way, because if you go to twitter.com, it's still the same. He just never mind. I digress. Okay. All right. So we're gonna go and ask another question here. Let's see. Uh I love this one. This one's good. Ooh, ooh, ooh. This one goes really in hand with what we just discussed. Okay. Can I share a strategy for regularly assessing tasks and responsibilities to uncover hidden delegation opportunities? Can I share a strategy for regularly assessing tasks and responsibilities to uncover hidden delegation opportunities? This one's good. Um, I love this one. Now, one of the questions I would ask of leaders is, Do you understand what your core work is? What is it that you actually get paid? Like what do you do? What does a typical day look like? I've done this exercise several times. I want to challenge you all to do it. Even if you are an individual contributor, I would encourage you to do it as well, which is track your day for a week. I mean, literally, like open a OneNote, excuse me, open a Google Doc and track what you do day to day. Like 7:30 a.m., log on, start checking emails, responding to blah, blah, blah emails based on blah, blah, blah. Doesn't have to be full dissertations every time, but start tracking. The very first thing that you're going to learn just by tracking your time for a week is how much crap you do that's not important. Sorry, not sorry. You're going to figure out how much time that you're spending on non-critical tasks. That's going to help you out of the gate. And it may be that it's not important, but it may be the thing that you're spending time on that you'll start to be like, "Why am I doing this?" That's what happens. You're like, "Why am I doing this?" Right? That's what I did. Or why am I in this meeting? I started doing that. So first thing I would say is assess. In assessing what you do, track your time for a week. Track your time for an entire week, and then you'll understand what tasks and responsibilities you have. If you want extra credit, do 2 weeks. All right? Now that's step 1 in really understanding what your tasks and responsibilities are. Now, once you know and understand where all of your time is going and where your time is spent, you'll get a better understanding of what you can actually delegate. The other reason why leaders struggle so much with delegation is because they don't actually have a grasp on their work day to day. And if you don't have a grasp on your work day to day, then how can you delegate? So that's part 1, right? So part 1, assess and understand the work that you're doing. And I promise you, once you start writing down where you spend your time, you will be so much more cognizant of what you're doing and what you're spending your time on. Right? Now that you know, go through and look at all the things that you've done and ask yourself, am I the person? Am I the only person who can do this? If the answer is yes, we'll just put it on the back corner. If the answer is no, then I want you to be thinking about who on your team has the capacity or the bandwidth or the skill set to be able to do that. Right? Or here's the other one. If it should be done at all, that's also an option. There's an option. You can do it, you can delegate, or you can delete that task. That is up for grabs. I have no qualms about deleting some things. Well, like, I don't need this meeting. Delete is viable option in this as well. I just want to make sure we're clear we're clear on that. All right? So, now that we know that. So, for those of you all who are just joining, first of all, thank you for joining. Right now, we're talking about a strategy in helping really regularly assess tasks and responsibilities to uncover hidden delegation opportunities. So the first thing we talked about was number 1, take account for your time, track your time, know and understand what you're doing with your time. After you do that, it's really looking at and figuring out what buckets of things that you're doing and what things you can do or should be doing or have to do, and what are some things you can delegate, and potentially what are some things you can delete. Right? Now, after you've done these things, now I think we're really starting. This is where your hidden delegation opportunities happen. And a lot of times, what you will find in terms of even just like hidden delegation opportunities, it's these one-offs, right? It's these things that I like to call it, they get tossed over the fence, right? You'll look up and you'll say, "Oh man, it got tossed over the fence." And so you're trying to figure out where this came from. Should I be doing it? What does that look like? And so you have to make sure that in the process of that, by assessing how you're spending your time, where you're spending your time, you'll get an understanding of really learning where some of those opportunities um, lie, if you will, in terms of that. So love that, love that. Is there anything else before we keep going? I just want to make sure that any questions that you all have, please make sure that you drop them in the chat. I can see them, so I just want to make sure that um, if you have questions around delegation, do not be afraid to ask. If this is making sense, leverage the chat as much as possible. I want to be able to make sure that I answer your questions really about the art of delegation, driving success or leading to doom. Okay, here we go. Ah, Jana, I love this. Jana says, when I did this, I found I wasted a lot of time focusing on non-essential tasks. Boom. There it is. Y'all, I'm telling you, this right here alone, just track promise me, like, is it a pain in the butt to track your day, every little thing you do for a week or 2 weeks? Yes, it is a pure pain in the butt. But what you will find is where your time is going. I promise you, Jana, I love that you said that because it is. You will find that you are spending way too much time on non-essential tasks or tasks that can be delegated or tasks that should be deleted. Because keep in mind, remember the focus and the goal of all of this, right? The focus and the goal of all of this is to put yourself on a path to reaching what your main goals are, to keep the main thing the main thing. And so anything that's deviating outside of what you think is essential of what you're trying to achieve, you need to eliminate or delegate or delete. So that becomes wildly important. All right, so I'm just going to take a pit stop right here, just to let you all know. We'll get some more questions in. If you have questions, please make sure that you drop them in the chat. I want to make sure that I answer those because that's first and foremost. I always make sure that I have questions for you all and things for us to discuss. But if you have them, I want to answer them live. That's really the purpose of this. So while I'm giving you all a moment to really think about potentially um, what questions you want to ask me around delegation, I really want to share something that's really awesome, near and dear to my heart. I have launched it's called Ignite Leadership Masterclass. This is the beta group. We've got about 5 more days for people to come in and to enroll. And so I just want to share with you just a little bit about the Ignite Leadership Masterclass, and then we'll get to some more questions. Um, and so I'm actually going to pull up the screen just so that way you all can see it. There we go. Okay, so just to share with you, it does say you've been invited. You all have been secretly invited to this, but I want to share about the Ignite Leadership Masterclass because I think it's really important. And I'll also drop the link in the chat so that you all can check it out as well. LinkedIn, I'll go in and add that as to you all later after the feed. So part of this Ignite Leadership Masterclass is this. What I found a lot of times was I saw leaders struggling. I saw a lot of leaders who were struggling to lead day to day. A lot of leadership theories and methodologies and teachings and trainings talk a lot about theory. And the thing is, with theory is great, but it's not enough, right? And so the Ignite Leadership class, I decided to build this class so I could teach you how to win day to day. And so I love this is something I wrote, but I said, are you grappling with balancing your own tasks and leading your team towards a broader vision and a desire to be the kind of leader, newer experience, who makes a lasting impact on your team and the organization? Right. The other thing that I like to say is, do you want to be the type of leader that everybody wants to work for? That's what this class is really about. And so your mission, should you choose to accept it, is really to transform your leadership skills in 90 days, creating a leadership success blueprint that aligns your team, clarifies your strategy, and fosters a culture of excellence and high performance. And so in this, oh, Jana, I see you said so similar to a food diary. I love that. Um, you know, what we'll kind of go through just to kind of really show you what all of this is about. I just realized that says 5 days. This says 6 days. I gotta change that. Um, gotta change that there. So really, I just want to show you all what we will be working on in the Ignite Leadership Masterclass. In the Ignite Leadership Masterclass, we'll start with clarifying your vision. We'll talk about efficiency frameworks, embracing change management, how do you maximize team impact for high performance, and then cultivating a high engagement culture. Each one of these, it's going to be over 12 weeks. I believe there's enough time for one. I think I have one break week baked in there. Over the 12 weeks, I'll be teaching every week. And then we'll also have group coaching, which I'm really excited about. So we'll have weekly live training. So it starts next Monday. It'll go all the way through to the end of April. Weekly live trainings by yours truly. We'll do group coaching sessions. Those will be every other week. And so this is going to be an opportunity for you to listen and learn from other leaders. And then what I'm super duper excited about is there's an online platform and it's exclusive community forum. All of these things will be in there as well. And then we'll do a final celebration at the end, kind of like a graduation. And what I've done specifically for people who are willing to kind of come in and sign up, you will get an additional 2 years access to any future Ignite Leadership Masterclasses. And that is because this is beta, it's very iterative. We're going to be figuring it out together along the way. There may be adjustments, a learning curve on both of our sides. And so what I want to be able to do is give you additional 2 years access to the to future Ignite Leadership Masterclass. So if you want to take it again in the fall, if you decide you want to do a refresher next year, you can do that. And then for the rest of the year, we'll do 1 year of quarterly group support calls. So we would have quarterly group support calls once a quarter just to check in, see how things are going, which I think I'm going to be super excited just to follow up with that. I'm also offering 2 private coaching sessions. These bonuses, and then lifetime access to the Leadership Lounge. And the Leadership Lounge will be launching summer fall, where this will be joining monthly Q&A sessions with leaders. It's going to be more behind the scenes. It'll likely be a paid community. It's not likely, it will absolutely be a paid community where I'll be able to bring in leaders from across the industries. You'll be able to ask some questions. But because you joined me and you said yes to me early on, this is what you will get. And this is easily 5,000 plus worth of benefits. The other thing I have not added to this page yet, you all will be the first to hear this. We have partnered with a great company called Simplify. And this company, and actually I will pull it up because I'm super, 5 Dynamics is what it's called. I'm super duper excited. So everybody who signs up with this class, now this is going to bump the value up. I'm not joking about this. The company typically works with very large organizations, and they are giving all of our students a free assessment. And it's really about evaluating your process and talks about, it really focuses on how you approach work. Right? It's not another, I didn't want to do another personality test. Everybody knows I'm ENFP, that's mine. What's my Myers-Briggs? What's my Enneagram? What strength finders, right? Like this, all these things. And I'm sorry, this is going way longer than I thought, but I just wanted to share with you. So I'm super excited about this particular offering. So if you sign up, you will also get access to this. And so you'll be able to pull it up and you'll get an assessment and you'll be able to see, right, exactly how much, how you approach your work, right? Are you more explore person? Are you more excite? Are you more examine? Are you more execute person? This right here, when I did this assessment, when I was still in corporate, changed how I approached work. It changed what I said yes to and what I said no to. If you want to know kind of where I fall, I am effortless across explore, excite, and examine. I am deliberate, which means it's harder for me. It's like energy draining to execute. I'm not a details person, but I am definitely I love visionary. I can get people excited about things, and I love to ask the questions. You can't get effortless across all four. It was so funny. I was talking with the founder. She's like, "Yeah, if you get effortless across, you're probably a sociopath. So you don't want across four, but there are some people who can go through all three, which is what happened with me. But I'm excited to announce that. So I've dropped the link. I've dropped the link in there. That's all I'm going to share about that. And what I'll also drop a link in as well is if you're still unsure and you just want to have a conversation with me, please feel free to drop in and set some time up with me, and we can talk and chat and see if this is really a good fit for you. And I'm going to copy that. Sorry, y'all. Let's see. Here we go. So I'll share these. This is a leadership. It's a leadership momentum session. They're 30 minutes. They're free. I don't charge for these. And in these leadership momentum sessions, at the end of the day, you'll learn if this is a really good fit for you. Great. If not, it's totally cool. um, it's totally fine. What we'll basically do is you'll be able to really talk and understand like what's going on in your world, how I can help, all the things. And then if nothing else, you'll at least probably come away with one or two tips you can take going forward. So those are the two things I wanted to share with you. And now we'll get back to questions. Okay, so you all have had plenty of time to think about questions and no questions. All right. All right, we're going to hop back into some other questions then. All right. Okay. So we are now we're going to talk about I love this one. How do you incorporate feedback into the delegation process to continually improve your team? You that's a misspelling. Improve you and your team's performance. Well, I guess you could say your and your team's performance. I guess that works either way. How do you incorporate feedback into the delegation process? So here's what I'll say. As leaders, we have to remember that all leadership, right? Like leadership, part of that is coaching and feedback. So as far as how you're going to incorporate feedback into the delegation process, I think there's a couple of things. Depending on that person's skill set or depending on their capabilities or what you're delegating to them, I think it's really important that you figure out and establish early on how you're going to check in with this person. Right? So when I'm going in and I'm thinking about how am I going to incorporate feedback, if it's somebody who I know may struggle to like go too far into detail, then I may do check-ins a little bit more frequent than somebody who I know can probably, you know, crank it out in big chunks and milestones. So the first thing that you can do in incorporating feedback into your delegation process is number one, uh, know where your check-ins and checkpoints are going to be. And they may not be the same for everybody on your team. And it may not be the same based on every single project or something that you delegate. The other piece of this puzzle is incorporating feedback into the delegation process will not be difficult if you are in the regular habit of giving coaching and feedback to your people. Do you have regular one-on-ones? Do you have team check-ins? Do you have, if you have groups of people who work on bodies of work? So I'll give you a good example. For my team, I had a group that was over more learning and development type of things. I had a group that I managed that was also they worked specifically in supporting like the business units themselves. And then I had a group that did more strategies and ops types of things at one point. Um, you know, reorging all these things. But kind of long story short, I typically always had anywhere between 3 to 4 groups of bodies of work that were working on things. And so sometimes, depending on what's going on, I would do check ins with that whole group or do readouts with that whole group. And that allowed for me to give feedback. So, the easiest way to incorporate feedback into your delegation process is absolutely going to be knowing when and how, how often they're going to check in based on either that person or that project. And then once you know that, then it's time to give feedback. I would say the one thing that I would stress the most is don't get in the habit of trying to do it in the process of giving feedback, right? Don't don't take over. Your goal is a part of feedback and delegation is to guide and empower them along the way. If they're drowning, you may need to come in and save them, but just try to make sure that they're drowning in the process. Okay, great question. Jana says, I may have already covered this, but when tasks are constantly being done incorrectly, or maybe even not completely is what I'm guessing you're saying. When Yes, okay, completely. Thank you. When do you move into more stern conversations? Um, that's a good one. So when tasks are constantly being done incorrectly or maybe even not completely, when do you move into stern conversations? Okay, great question. So my first question I would ask you, I'm a believer in I don't think Jessica's still on, but her and I were even talking about this at one point, which was extreme ownership. Okay. And my first question to you would be as a leader is have you have you shown or given the standard for what complete looks like? Right? So not doing something incomplete is different than incorrect. Okay, and then you said over a long period of time. Okay. Uh so this conversation I would say is teetering less on task delegation and feedback, but more or less moving along the lines of performance management, right? So, I think the question I would ask you, so if I were coaching you, the question I would ask you is, okay, you have somebody who is not performing the way that they should, right? They are consistently not doing their job. They're doing it incorrectly or they're not doing it completely. I'm making the assumption that you've shown them the proper way to do this and this has been done consistently over a period of time. I think everybody's tolerance level is different for what they will allow. So I don't necessarily know if it's like, hey, when do you move into the stern conversation? I'm like, it depends. It depends. Is this person new? Is this person, which I'm guessing not because you said over a long period of time, right? Is this person new? If they're not, are they being deliberate? I think I probably once is an accident. Twice I'll say, we'll just say that's a coincidence. I'm making this up as I go. Third time, it's probably on its way to becoming a habit. And so if I had to go 1, 2, 3, I probably would say maybe after the between the second and the third time, you should be intervening. And if your intervention is not working, then now this becomes a performance management conversation. And we need to have a conversation on if this is even the right job for you. That's like the truth. Like delegating or not, like if you've shown here's what we need to do, here's what I expect from you, here's how here's what I'm expecting, right? Another thing I like to do, Jana, before I go into a stern conversation, one of my favorite things I like to say is I'll say, "Hey, walk me through your process." Right? Talk me through your process. Walk me through your process, and we'll hop on a call and like I'll get to hear their thought process or see their thought process. And this works even in person, right? Talk me through your thought process. Walk me through what this looks like. And when you're doing that, it allows for you the ability to be able to kind of go in and do that. And there was a really great clip by Adam Grant. Um, and it was like 16 words before feedback. Um, I gotta share this because I think um let's see if I can find it. I will tell you, I am not a fan of the feedback sandwich. That's a no for me. I do not, I do not like the feedback sandwich. It's people know. People know when you're not being like sometimes it's good to be like go in and say, "Hey, like you're great," but like don't sandwich it. I'm just not a fan of that. All right. Jana, I want to give you this one piece of it. Bear with me. Those of you all who are watching, bear with me because I want to get this right. And of course, everything is lagging as I'm pulling this up. I feel like I'm sweating bullets now. Um where is it? Okay. I've got to go back. See all my posts on LinkedIn. I cuz this was a brilliant line. Um okay. Here's the line that they gave. This is it's he says it's 19 words to make people more receptive when you give them feedback. And it says that I'm giving you these comments because I have very high expectations and I'm confident that you can reach them. That's what he says. I'm giving you this feedback or I'm giving you these comments because I have high expectations and I'm confident that you can reach them. Like what? Like so good. So I think that that's like a good example of and he said and it's really cool because he was sharing um with them how do you give feedback and how do you make people more open to feedback and ready to receive it and that was one of the lines that they gave and it was I thought it was brilliant um in terms of the importance of giving good feedback and honest feedback and going from there. Well, with that being said, time flies when you are having fun. Um, we are at time, but once again, I just want to remind you all, be sure um check out the Ignite Leadership Masterclass. There's all the details are there for how you can sign up and be a part of it or schedule some time with me. All of those are in the comments. I'm super excited that we're just going to continue these conversations every Tuesday at 2 o'clock. So just thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you all have an awesome week. For those of you who are watching, go back. If you hopped on late, go back and watch. But when we think about the art of delegation, I want to remind you that it is not about giving up. It's about empowering and leading up. Okay. All right. With that being said, y'all have an awesome week and I'll see you same time, same place.